Have you ever heard of a child raised by wolves, jackals, or wild animals, living among them, surviving like one of them? Deep in the forest, far away from civilization, there was a boy who grew up just like the creatures that surrounded him. He learned to hunt from them. He sensed danger the way they did. Even the way he communicated mimicked their behavior. He didn't just live in the wild. He had become one with it. But that's not even the most astonishing part. One day, purely by chance, he was discovered by humans. And that's when everything changed. They tried to train him, to civilize him. But years later, when the truth about his past finally came to light, it shocked everyone. Because the story of how he ended up in the forest and how the animals raised him was unlike anything the world had ever heard. Near the village of La King, close to Avignon, there were forests so dangerous they were ruled by wolves and jackals. One day, a group of local hunters ventured into the woods, just as they always did. As they tracked their prey, they suddenly caught sight of something fast, unusually agile and strange. It darted through the underbrush, barely visible through the dense thickets. At first glance, it looked like a thin, scraggly wolf. But when the hunters crept closer for a better shot, they realized it wasn't a wolf at all. What they had seen was a boy, completely naked, covered in dirt, with matted hair and skin full of cuts and scratches. He moved in a jerky, animal-like way and gave off an unbearable odor. His long hair almost made him look like a girl, but his nakedness revealed he was a boy. The hunters tried to catch him, but he was incredibly fast, leaping and darting away like a wild creature. He nearly escaped them, until he tried to climb a tree, fell, and was captured. Still unsure of what they had found, the hunters brought the wild child back to the village. There, everyone called him the Wild Boy. No one had ever seen anything like him. He was clearly in shock, refusing to speak, growling and clawing at anyone who got close, biting, snarling. Every gesture was purely instinctual. The villagers didn't know what to make of him. One thing was clear: he was not like other children. Some treated him with kindness, others with ridicule. A few even threw stones, unable to see a child. Only something strange and less than human. But he wasn't a creature. He was a boy with a mysterious past who had survived alone in the wild. One who would later be named Victor, meaning victory, in honor of the battle he had unknowingly fought and won. Victor had no concept of love or compassion. He didn't speak. He made animal-like sounds because words meant nothing to him. He lived entirely by instinct, mostly to flee or to fight. He had no understanding of toileting. No matter the time or place, when the urge struck, he would simply squat and relieve himself wherever he stood. Even when surrounded by people, he seemed to expect them to act like wolves. His time in the village didn't last long. Always searching for a chance to escape, Victor eventually fled back into the woods. For months, not a single trace of him was found, because he had returned to his true home. Nearly a year later, 3 hunters spotted him near the same area where he was first captured. But this time things were different. The villagers treated him better. They cleaned him, dressed him, fed him. Now he had regular meals, warmth, and attention. From the outside, it looked like a better life. But for Victor, it meant nothing. He escaped again. It wasn't surprising. He constantly tore off the clothes he was given. He simply couldn't adapt. But this time, something changed. He began returning, usually when he was hungry. He would visit the village, eat, then vanish into the forest again. This cycle continued for 3 whole years. Eventually, the villagers grew worried. They didn't want to lose him again to the dangers of the wild. One freezing winter morning, they captured him a final time. And that's when the most remarkable chapter of the story began. People came from nearby villages and distant cities just to see him. The story reached even the ears of Lucien Bonaparte, Napoleon's brother and a prominent statesman. The government took great interest. Soon, Victor was placed under the care of specialists in psychology and neuroscience. He underwent his first evaluation. The results were startling. Victor didn't speak and he didn't respond to sound. He was transferred to the National Institute for the Deaf, where more in-depth studies began. They estimated he was around 12 years old, just entering adolescence. One experiment stood out. They stripped him of clothing and led him out into the snow, right in the middle of a harsh winter. Victor didn't even flinch. He walked around barefoot, completely at ease, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. This moment confirmed what many suspected. He had survived for years in the wild. The Institute's director wrote in his report, "Victor exhibits behaviors extremely close to those of wild animals. This is an extraordinary and unprecedented case." His aggression, his restlessness, and his complete lack of curiosity raised concern. He gritted his teeth, rocked back and forth, and made abrupt, unpredictable movements. Some suspected severe mental illness. Eventually, the researchers gave up. He was left to wander the halls of the Institute alone. A committee officially declared him an incurable idiot. There was talk of committing him to an asylum. Then came one man who changed everything, Dr. Jean-Marc Gaspard Itard. He was young but determined. He didn't just want to study Victor. He wanted to help him. He believed there were two things that separated humans from animals: empathy and language. And he was determined to teach Victor both. His first question was simple. Can this boy learn? To find out, he began his work. In one test, he placed a mirror in front of Victor and held an apple above his head. Victor reached for the reflection, bumping into the glass. He didn't understand what he was seeing, but after a few tries, he stopped reaching for the mirror and grabbed the apple above him. Victor had learned. He couldn't even distinguish between hot and cold. He would plunge his hand into boiling water just to get a few potatoes, again and again. His pain threshold seemed non-existent. Even when his hand was scalded, he didn't react much. But eventually he learned to tell the difference. He stopped burning himself. He began to wear clothes, wrap himself in blankets, even seek out human touch for comfort. Dr. Itard gave him a warm bath every single day for 3 months to help build these habits. But when it came to language, progress was slow. Over the years, Victor learned only 3 words: lait, milk, light, water, and oh Dieu, oh God. And he didn't use them correctly. He said milk when he was angry, oh God when he was thirsty. The meanings were blurred. His understanding of language remained extremely limited. He could recognize a picture of a dog when asked, but he could never go beyond that. Then something unexpected happened. One day, for the first time, Victor cried. Madame Guerin, who had cared for him, lost her husband. As always, Victor placed one extra plate at the table for the missing man. When he saw her cry, he finally understood. He quietly removed the extra plate and never placed it again. Then he sat beside her and cried too. Victor had begun to feel. His education lasted 6 years, but eventually progress halted. Dr. Itard gave up. A part of Victor always remained tied to the forest. Science tells us that there is a critical period for language learning. Once it passes, it doesn't come back. Victor had missed that window entirely. He had been alone from birth. By the time the villagers found him, it was already too late. He had entered adolescence. For him, life had always been about one thing: survival. After his education ended, Victor lived another 20 years in Madame Guerin's home. In 1828, he passed away from pneumonia in the same house. Some say he died because he missed the forest, missed the freedom of his true home. How did Victor end up in the forest to begin with? How did he survive among wild animals? There are 2 strong theories. The first suggests he was born into a poor alcoholic family. At that time, children with mental or physical differences were seen as shameful. According to some sources, Victor was abandoned in the woods as an infant. Crying in the cold, he attracted a wolf pack. A female wolf, guided by instinctive compassion, took him in and raised him as her own. The second theory is more tragic. He may have gotten lost or been kidnapped. Maybe it was a moment of neglect, maybe an accident. But whatever happened, he survived not because nature was kind, but because animals were. They taught him to walk, to hide, to hunt, to endure. He lived not as a boy, but as a wolf. And that's why, when he was found, he didn't feel he belonged to humanity. He belonged to the forest. Please don't forget to like the video, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to the channel.